Core Measure 7, Record Demographics. The objective of Core Measure 7 is to ensure that providers are maintaining specific demographic elements within the patient's electronic health record. The 5 specific elements have been defined by CMS are preferred language of the patient, their gender, their race, the ethnicity, as well as their date of birth. The measure requires that more than 50% of all unique patients seen by the eligible provider within the reporting period have these specific demographic elements recorded in the structured data of the EHR system. Now, with regards to the requirements of attestation, the denominator, as is the case with many of the measures, are the unique patients seen during the reporting period. Now, recall that this means that the patient was seen at least once and is therefore counted only once, regardless of how many specific visits he or she has. And that is because demographics are actually at the patient level, so it has no bearing on how many times they're seen during the reporting period. The numerator then is going to look at only those unique patients seen and validate if all 5 of these data elements have been stored under the EHR system. And if so, it will be counted as compliant in the numerator, which must exceed that 50% threshold. Within Core Measure 7, there are no exclusions, so it is a mandatory measure that all providers must comply with. Now, to see where this data is entered in your patient register screen, we have got Johnny Measure's chart open, and as the registration person is going through and entering their demographics, typically these fields that are being required are not already something that you standardly ask. So the system is going to alert. As I just attempted to update my patient register, the system is warning me that the language, the race, and the ethnic group are required for meaningful use, but in this case have not been entered. And it's asking, do I want to edit the details? So as the registration person, this is simply a warning indicating don't forget the meaningful use requirements. But if I'm in a situation where I'm too busy at the front desk, maybe I'm on the phone making this new patient appointment, and I don't have time to ask them, what is your race? What language do you prefer? I do not have to enter it here. That is why it is a warning and not an error. So I could say no, it will save my patient register, but it would be non-compliant. And that is where quite easily you could fall underneath that 50% requirement. Because if you're in a busy practice or your registrars get in the habit of just saying no here, then you will have a lot of non-compliant patient demographics. So if the registrar clicks yes, and this is a workflow decision, of course, amongst your registration staff, but if you click yes, the system does take you directly to the other info tab. So unless you're already in the habit of entering this other info, perhaps you're not aware these fields exist. If not, at least now you know they are required. And you will notice that they are pick lists. So for instance, in the language, I'm going to just go ahead and choose English. For the race, I'm going to click Other Race. And for my ethnic group, I'm going to put Hispanic or Latino. You can choose any of those valid options in the drop-downs, and notice that a valid option is even unknown. So if you are not able to discern the patient's ethnicity and you're too embarrassed to ask, or they're refuse to give you that information, then you can simply put unknown. Or you can even add an option called patient refuse to give. As long as you are not ignoring the data, you must enter something there. So then when you click Save, your patient register will now have all 5 data elements, which is what meaningful use requires. So to summarize the Core Measure 7, you want to remember to enter your date of birth and gender, and that is on the top frame of your patient register, typically when the address tab is defaulted. You also want to remember to go to the Other Info tab of Patient Register and enter your language, your ethnicity, and your race, and that would be at the bottom portion of that Other Info tab. And then finally, you want to save the record. And if you forget any of this, the system will warn you at that point of registration when you go to save the record, and you then have the option of filling in the data.